Hey guys, tonight we delve into a place where silence is sacred and secrets are meant to be confessed, not concealed. Imagine the cold, still air of a cathedral at dawn, sunlight filtering through stained glass, painting rainbows on stone floors that have absorbed a century of prayers. But in one of those slivers of light, a trained nose, one of the most sophisticated detection instruments on the planet, catches a scent that doesn't belong. It's a scent that threatens to turn this house of worship into a house of horrors. This is one of those stories that burrows under your skin, a quiet sort of unsettling that makes you glance over your shoulder, so you probably shouldn't be listening to this alone. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see where these stories land. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The call comes in at 5:30, just as the sky over the town of Harmony Creek is blushing from bruised purple to a hopeful gray. It's a routine sweep, the kind of assignment Officer Dave Miller gets twice a month. St. Jude's Cathedral is preparing for its annual Founders Day service, and with the governor scheduled to attend, protocol demands a full security check. For Miller and his partner, Rex, it's mostly a walkthrough, a formality. Rex, a 6-year-old Belgian Malinois with eyes like burnt amber and a nose insured for $250,000, is what the department calls a dual-purpose canine. He can find a missing child, chase down a fleeing suspect, and detect 19 different explosive chemical compounds. As you watch them enter the cathedral, the massive oak doors groaning shut behind them, the silence is immediate. The air is thick with the scent of old wood, melted beeswax, and the faint metallic tang of cold frankincense. Miller runs a hand over Rex's back, a silent command to begin. Rex needs no encouragement. He works with a quiet, focused intensity that is both beautiful and a little unnerving to watch. He moves up the main aisle, his paws making no sound on the polished stone. He sniffs the base of the marble pulpit, the velvet cushions on the front row chairs reserved for dignitaries, the collection baskets, nothing. He is a picture of canine professionalism. Miller follows a few paces behind, his eyes scanning, his mind already on the coffee and paperwork waiting for him back at the station. This is the third pew from the back on the left. A simple, unadorned bench of dark polished oak, identical to the 50 others in the nave. Rex passes it, then stops. He backtracks, his head cocked. His tail, usually a relaxed rudder, gives a single stiff wag. Miller halts. He knows that signal. It's not an alert, not yet. It's a question. Did I just smell that? Rex places his nose directly on the seat of the pew. He sniffs once, deeply. Then he sits. It's the trained, passive alert he's supposed to give for explosives, a quiet, non-threatening signal to prevent him from triggering a pressure-sensitive device. Miller's heart rate ticks up a notch. He feels the familiar cold dread that always precedes the adrenaline. "Show me," he murmurs, his voice a low rumble in the cavernous space. Rex remains seated, but nudges the exact same spot with his nose. Here's where things get strange. Miller runs his tactical flashlight over the spot. It's solid wood, no seams, no drill holes, no scuff marks. He runs a gloved hand over the surface. It's smooth, coated in decades of varnish. There's nothing there. This is the first moment of irony. A dog trained to find hidden bombs is alerting on what appears to be a solid 2-inch thick plank of wood. Miller encourages Rex to check again. Rex obliges, sniffing the entire pew from end to end before returning to the exact same spot and sitting with even more conviction. Now, you have to understand the legal footing here. Under a 2013 Supreme Court ruling, Florida versus Harris, an alert from a certified, reliable narcotics or bomb dog is enough to establish probable cause for a search. The court essentially decided that a well-trained dog's nose is a trustworthy source of information. So, legally, Miller has every right to call in a team and start ripping this pew apart. But professionally, he's hesitant. Damaging consecrated church property based on a phantom scent could be a career ender, especially if they find nothing but splinters. This is where that fascinating, unresolved debate comes in. Experts still argue whether a handler can subconsciously influence their canine, a phenomenon called the clever Hans effect, named after a horse in the early 1900s that was thought to do math, but was actually just reading its owner's subtle body language. Is Miller somehow cueing Rex? He runs a quick mental check. His posture is neutral, his breathing steady. He hasn't tensed up. No. This is all Rex. And just as Miller considers calling it a false positive, maybe from a chemical cleaner the janitor used, Rex does something he has never done in 4 years of service. He breaks his sit. He stands up, puts his front paws on the pew, and lets out a low, frustrated whine. Then he scratches the wood, a single, deliberate scrape with his claw. It's a shocking breach of protocol. A passive alert dog should never, ever make physical contact with a potential explosive device. It's the one rule drilled into them from day one. Rex looks back at Miller, his amber eyes pleading. He's not just alerting, he's arguing, he's insisting. That's it. The second an animal as disciplined as Rex breaks its training, Miller knows this is anything but routine. The doubt evaporates, replaced by a chilling certainty. Something is wrong with this pew. He pulls his radio. "Dispatch, this is K-9 3, he says, his voice now tight, clipped. "I have a positive canine alert at St. Jude's. I need a tech team on site. We're going to have to get inside this thing." He looks down at Rex, who is now sitting patiently again, having made his point. In the holy silence of the church, surrounded by images of saints and martyrs, you get the feeling they are about to uncover a very modern kind of sin. The EOD team arrives in a sterile white van that looks profoundly out of place parked beside the cathedral's Gothic arches. They are 2 technicians, a man named Garcia and a woman named Chen, and they move with the unhurried calm of people who deal with worst-case scenarios for a living. You watch them unpack their gear, a collection of futuristic-looking scanners and scopes, laying it all out on a blue tarp in the aisle. The sacred space is now a potential blast zone, cordoned off with yellow tape that feels like a desecration against the ancient stone. Garcia, the senior tech, listens to Miller's report, his gaze fixed on the unassuming wooden bench. He doesn't show surprise or doubt. He simply nods, processing the data. A veteran canine, a handler's certainty, a broken protocol. He's heard stranger things. Their first step is a portable X-ray scanner. It's a cumbersome device they position on one side of the pew with a digital plate on the other. On the monitor, a ghostly green and black image of the pew's interior appears. And there it is, a faint, perfectly rectangular outline about the size of a shoebox, nestled inside the solid seat. It's a void, a cavity. But there are no wires, no battery pack, no metallic density consisting with a shell casing or shrapnel. Whatever is in there, it's not a conventional bomb. This is the first major twist that sends a ripple of confusion through the team. They came prepared for a device, but the X-ray shows nothing of the sort. Chen suggests a fiber optic bore scope. Miller has to physically move Rex outside, as the high-pitched drill they used to create a pinhole for the scope would be agony for the dog's sensitive ears. Standing on the cathedral steps in the now bright morning light, Miller can't shake the feeling of wrongness. The sun is up, birds are singing, the town is waking up, and inside that silent church, a team is drilling into a pew because his dog smelled a ghost? Back inside, Chen feeds the thin, flexible camera into the tiny hole. Garcia and Miller huddle around her tablet, watching the view from inside the wood. The camera snakes into a dark, hollow space. And it's clean, masterfully hollowed out, the inside surfaces sanded smooth. This wasn't a rush job done with a chisel and hammer. This was the work of a skilled woodworker, a craftsman. In the center of the compartment sit two objects. One is a small, clear baggie containing a fine white powder. The other is a roll of paper tied with a simple piece of string. Garcia gives the all clear, non-explosive. The tension in the room deflates, but it's replaced by a thick fog of mystery. With painstaking care, using specialized tongs, Garcia retrieves the items. First, the roll of paper. He doesn't unroll it, he places it directly into an evidence bag, which Chan labels with the date, time, location, and her initials. Then he retrieves the pouch of powder. It's Ziploc sealed, a standard sandwich bag. It looks utterly mundane. He places that in a second evidence bag. Miller watches this process with professional appreciation. This is the implementation of the chain of custody, a non-negotiable legal principle. From this moment on, a perfect, unbroken record of every person who handles this evidence must be maintained. One unaccounted-for minute, one undocumented transfer, and a defense attorney could argue the evidence was tampered with, rendering it inadmissible in court. Miller steps forward and adds his own signature to the log, officially transferring custody to the EOD team. Now for the second oddity of the day. Garcia, following protocol, cuts a tiny corner from the baggie and uses a field test kit to analyze the powder. He runs it through a gauntlet of chemical reagents, each designed to detect a different class of explosive. Nitrate, peroxide, chlorate. Every single test comes back negative. He leans closer to the bag and takes a cautious sniff. Nothing. "It's odorless," he says, looking up at Miller. "Completely inert, as far as I can tell. No explosive properties at all." So now you have a bomb dog alerting on something that isn't a bomb, and a mysterious powder that has no sense and no explosive signature. It's a paradox. This is where the second twist lands. Rex wasn't wrong, but he wasn't right in the way they expected. The focus shifts from the what to the how. How could a highly trained dog make such a specific alert on something that, by all metrics, should be invisible to him? Chan brings up a controversial topic in the canine community, the combined odor theory. It's an unresolved debate among scent detection experts. The theory posits that dogs sometimes don't alert on a single target chemical, but on a unique cocktail of otherwise benign scents. Maybe it wasn't just the powder. Maybe it was the specific species of oak, the particular glue used to seal the compartment, the ink on the paper, the plastic of the baggie, and the powder itself. Separately, these scents are meaningless, but together they create a new, composite scent profile that, to Rex's exquisitely trained nose, mimics one of the 19 explosive compounds he's trained to find. It's a long shot, a theory many old-school handlers dismiss as junk science, but here, in the echoing silence of St. Jude's, it's the only explanation that makes a lick of sense. With the immediate threat neutralized, the investigation pivots. The EOD team packs up, handing the evidence over to a detective from the Major Crimes Unit who has just arrived. The atmosphere has changed from one of high-stakes tension to slow, methodical police work. They have their mystery: a hidden compartment, a coded message, and an unknown substance. Now they need to find its author. The detective, a sharp-eyed woman named Harding, turns her attention not to the evidence bags, but to the pew itself. "This pew," she says to Miller, running a hand over the polished wood, "it's been here for decades, but that compartment is new. Someone put it there. We need to know who sits here." The investigation is no longer about a bomb. It's about a ghost in the congregation. Who, in this town of faithful, would turn a place of prayer into their own private safe deposit box? Detective Harding's first stop is the parish office, a cozy room that smells of brewed coffee and old paper. She finds Father Michael, a man with kind eyes and a weary stoop, reviewing the schedule for the Founders' Day service. Harding explains the situation in broad strokes: a security concern, a compromised piece of church property. You can see the priest's mind struggling to connect the sanitized language of a police investigation with the sanctity of his cathedral. When Harding asks who is assigned to sit in the third pew from the back on the left, Father Michael just shakes his head. "There are no assigned seats, Detective," he says, a faint smile on his lips. "This is God's house, not a theater. People sit where they feel comfortable." It's a dead end, or it would be for a less experienced investigator. This is where Harding's mind goes to a place of cynical brilliance. She knows that while God may not keep records, the church treasurer certainly does. This is the first ironic twist. The path to uncovering a dark secret is paved with good intentions, or at least tax-deductible ones. "Father," Harding says, her tone softening, "do you use personalized donation envelopes?" The priest nods. Harding asks to see the collection logs for the past 6 months, specifically looking for cash donations from that section of the church. Here, she's on firm legal ground. This is what's known as the third-party doctrine. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held that when you voluntarily give information to a third party, like a bank, a phone company, or in this case, a church, you lose any reasonable expectation of privacy for that information. The church can legally hand over its donation records without a warrant. An hour later, Harding is hunched over a ledger in a dusty back room, and a pattern emerges. Every Sunday for 26 weeks straight, a donation of exactly $27.50 in cash has been made in an envelope dropped into the basket as it passes the third pew from the back left side. The name on the envelope? Arthur Finch. The name means nothing to Father Michael. He's a ghost in his own congregation. Harding runs the name through the DMV and property tax databases. Arthur Finch lives at 1412 Sycamore Lane in a quiet, leafy subdivision. His record is pristine. No criminal history, no warrants, not even a parking ticket. His digital footprint is non-existent. No social media, no credit card scores under that name, no online presence of any kind. He is a man actively avoiding the modern world. Harding and her partner, Detective Morales, drive to the house. It's a small, beige ranch-style home, but it's maintained with an unnerving precision. The lawn is a perfect green carpet, edged with geometric accuracy. The hedges are sculpted into flawless rectangles. It's less a home and more a statement of absolute control. And then you see the truly odd detail: the security cameras. There are at least 4 visible, high-end models. But they aren't pointing out at the street, watching for burglars. They are mounted under the eaves and aimed directly back at the house, focused on the windows and doors. He isn't watching the world, he's watching anyone who tries to get into his. Harding and Morales conduct a knock and talk, a voluntary interaction that doesn't require a warrant. Arthur Finch answers the door on the second knock. He's in his late 50s, with thin, graying hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a neatly pressed polo shirt. He looks like a high school librarian, not a criminal conspirator. He is unnervingly, preternaturally calm. "Yes, can I help you?" he asks, his voice soft and even.
Harding introduces herself. Finch's expression doesn't change. He doesn't seem surprised or nervous to have two detectives at his door. He listens patiently as Harding explains they are following up on a minor security issue at St. Jude's. He confirms he's a parishioner. When she asks where he usually sits, he gives a vague wave of his hand. "Oh, towards the back. I like the quiet." Harding presses, mentioning the specific pew. Finch gives a small, polite smile. "I can't say I've ever paid that much attention, detective. Is there a problem?" He denies everything, but it's the way he denies it, without an ounce of indignation or curiosity, that sets off alarms in Harding's head. This is the second moment of irony. His perfect calm is more damning than a panicked confession would be. As Finch stands in the doorway, Morales, who is standing slightly to the side, gets a clear view into the attached garage. The side door is ajar. The garage is as immaculate as the lawn. Tools hang on a pegboard in pristine rows, and on a workbench under a heavy canvas tarp is a large, rectangular object. Harding, noticing Morales' glance, asks Finch about his hobbies. "A little woodworking," Finch says, his eyes still locked on Harding. "It helps me relax." And that's when Harding sees it. A tiny, almost imperceptible detail on his perfectly clean welcome mat. A small drift of fine, dark sawdust. Oak sawdust. The legal question hangs in the air. Is this enough for a warrant? They have proximity and a potential hobby, but that's it. It's a classic circumstantial evidence debate. A defense attorney could argue that plenty of people do woodworking and go to that church. However, the combination of his almost pathological need for privacy, his presence at the scene, and the discovery of a wood-related hobby starts to build a compelling narrative for a judge. Harding thanks him for his time. As they turn to leave, Finch does something that solidifies Harding's suspicion. He doesn't close the door. He just stands there, watching them walk back to their unmarked car. And as he watches, Harding glances back and sees the tiny red light on the camera above his head. He's recording them. This entire conversation has been documented from his end. This is the third twist. Arthur Finch isn't just a quiet man. He's a man who curates his own isolation, documenting every intrusion, every interaction. He's not a victim of his own reclusiveness, he's the architect of it. The perfectly manicured life is a fortress, and Harding now knows with absolute certainty that she needs to get a warrant and tear that fortress down. And ethical debate, the dual-use dilemma. This is a real-world problem that governments and scientific communities grapple with. Legitimate scientific research that could be used to cure diseases can often be repurposed for nefarious ends. The very same knowledge that creates fertilizers to feed millions can create explosives to kill them. Arthur Finch, with his brilliant mind, embodies this dilemma. His genius in chemistry, once aimed at academic prizes, had been twisted into something sinister. Experts still argue over how to regulate such knowledge. Can you or should you forbid a person from knowing something just because of what they might do with it? The final piece of the puzzle clicks into place when the forensics tech finally breaks the encryption on Finch's computer. There's only one file of interest hidden deep in the system registry. It's a single high-resolution photo of a handwritten letter. The handwriting isn't Finch's. The letter is a list of dates and times coinciding with the upcoming Founders Day festival. Next to one date is an annotation, reservoir inlet valve, maximum flow. And at the bottom of the letter is a simple, chilling instruction. The vessel is in place. Await the signal. He will be glorified. The second ironic detail of the search is revealed. The meticulous craftsman who built the compartment in the pew isn't the architect of the plan. He's the instrument. He's taking orders. He's a disgraced chemist turned poison maker, but he's not the one in charge. Harding looks at the immaculate, sterile house around her and realizes Arthur Finch wasn't building a fortress to keep the world out. He was building a cage to keep himself in, following a script written by someone else.
With the discovery of the letter, the entire scope of the investigation explodes. It's no longer about a strange man in a suspicious pew. It's about a ticking clock and the potential mass casualty event. The immediate priority is the schematic, the rolled-up paper found inside the pew next to the poison. The crime lab gently unrolls the brittle paper under a humidity dome. It's not a blueprint for a bomb, it's a map. But it's a map unlike any Harding has ever seen. It shows St. Jude's Cathedral, but also what lies beneath it. It's a detailed diagram of the city's old, forgotten storm drain and sewer system, a labyrinth of tunnels that crisscrosses beneath Harmony Creek. One tunnel, marked with a faint red line, runs directly under the cathedral. It passes within feet of the town's primary water treatment facility, which sits on the edge of the city limits. An arrow on the schematic points to a specific junction labeled Main Aqueduct Intake. This is the central artery that carries fresh, treated water from the facility to the rest of the town. The plan is horrifyingly clear. The church wasn't the target. It was the staging ground, the point of entry. The hollowed-out pew was a drop box for the poison. The plan was to retrieve the compound, enter the sewer system through an old access point in the cathedral's catacombs, and introduce the poison directly into the town's water supply. The timing is the most sinister part. The Founders' Day festival is in 3 days. The letter on Finch's computer mentioned maximum flow. Harding calls the public works director, a harried man named Peterson, who confirms her worst fears. To accommodate the tens of thousands of visitors expected for the festival, for the extra showers, the flushing toilets, the food stalls, they flush the system and run the aqueducts at maximum pressure and volume the night before the event begins. It's standard procedure. This is the first devastating twist. The perpetrators are using the city's own safety protocols against it. They've weaponized the very infrastructure meant to support the community, ensuring their poison would reach every tap, every drinking fountain, every home in Harmony Creek in a matter of hours. Harding now has Arthur Finch in an interrogation room. The room is gray and bare, the antithesis of Finch's meticulously ordered home. But Finch remains an island of calm. He sits with his hands folded on the metal table, his expression placid. He has lawyered up, and his attorney, a high-priced shark from out of state, has advised him to say nothing. So he doesn't. Harding and Morales present him with the evidence: the custom-made compartment, the red oak shavings from his workshop, the bespoke poison that only a gifted chemist could create. Finch just stares back, his silence a suffocating blanket. Frustrated, Harding pivots. She asks about the letter found on his computer. Await the signal. He will be glorified. Who is he? Is it a religious statement? A code for a person? Finch's composure cracks just for a second. A muscle in his jaw twitches. It's the first genuine emotion she has seen from him. But he says nothing. The mention of this unknown figure is the key, the one thing that gets under his skin. This interrogation brings a fascinating legal event into play: the Christian burial speech. It's a famous tactic that arose from a 1977 Supreme Court case, Brewer v. Williams. In that case, police were transporting a murder suspect who had already invoked his right to an attorney. The detectives didn't question him directly. Instead, they spoke to each other about how the victim, a little girl, deserved a Christian burial, hoping to play on the suspect's religious beliefs and guilt him into revealing the body's location. It worked. The Supreme Court initially threw out the confession, ruling it was a form of interrogation that violated the suspect's rights, but the conviction was later upheld on other grounds. The case created a legal minefield around what constitutes an interrogation. Harding can't question Finch directly, but she can talk at him. She starts musing aloud to Morales about the kind of person who would manipulate a lonely, disgraced man. She talks about how someone brilliant like Finch was exploited, his talent used for a monstrous purpose by a coward hiding in the shadows. Finch's facade doesn't crumble, but the tiny twitch in his jaw returns. The second odd detail comes from the schematic itself. In the corner of the map, there's a small hand-drawn symbol. It looks like a stylized scale, the kind representing justice, but one side of the scale is weighted down by a feather. It's a peculiar, almost poetic bit of iconography. It means nothing to the detectives, a random doodle on a map of death, but it's a signature. And Harding photographs it and sends it out to every law enforcement agency in the state. Maybe someone has seen it before. With Finch silent and the festival looming, the investigation turns into a frantic citywide search. Teams are dispatched to map and seal every sewer entrance shown on the schematic. The public works director is brought into the loop, and he quietly begins formulating a plan to shut down and bypass the main aqueduct, a move that would be logistically crippling but necessary. The narrative has shifted from who did this to how do we stop what's already in motion. The final, chilling irony of this section lands when Harding, reviewing Finch's sterile financial records, finds a single recurring anomaly. Once a month, Finch makes a modest cash withdrawal. The next day, a corresponding donation is made to the St. Jude's Cathedral Restoration Fund. He wasn't just hiding his poison in the church, he was funding the institution he planned to use as a launchpad for his attack. His meticulous ledgers show he had contributed over $5,000 to the upkeep of the very building he intended to desecrate. It's a level of compartmentalization that is truly pathological. He is both benefactor and destroyer, tending the garden he plans to burn to the ground. He is not just a chemist, he is a keeper of a terrible secret covenant. And the identity of the person he made that covenant with is still out there, waiting to give the signal. With the discovery of the letter, the entire scope of the investigation explodes. It's no longer about a strange man in a suspicious pew. It's about a ticking clock and a potential mass casualty event. The immediate priority is the schematic, the rolled-up paper found inside the pew next to the poison. The crime lab gently unrolls the brittle paper under a humidity dome. It's not a blueprint for a bomb, it's a map. But it's a map unlike any Harding has ever seen. It shows St. Jude's Cathedral, but also what lies beneath it. It's a detailed diagram of the city's old, forgotten storm drain and sewer system, a labyrinth of tunnels that crisscrosses beneath Harmony Creek.
One tunnel, marked with a faint red line, runs directly under the cathedral. It passes within feet of the town's primary water treatment facility, which sits on the edge of the city limits. An arrow on the schematic points to a specific junction labeled Main Aqueduct Intake. This is the central artery that carries fresh, treated water from the facility to the rest of the town. The plan is horrifyingly clear. The church wasn't the target. It was the staging ground, the point of entry. The hollowed-out pew was a drop box for the poison.
The plan was to retrieve the compound, enter the sewer system through an old access point in the cathedral's catacombs, and introduce the poison directly into the town's water supply. The timing is the most sinister part. The Founders' Day festival is in 3 days. The letter on Finch's computer mentioned maximum flow. Harding calls the public works director, a harried man named Peterson, who confirms her worst fears. To accommodate the tens of thousands of visitors expected for the festival, for the extra showers, the flushing toilets, the food stalls, they flush the system and run the aqueducts at maximum pressure and volume the night before the event begins. It's standard procedure. This is the first devastating twist. The perpetrators are using the city's own safety protocols against it. They've weaponized the very infrastructure meant to support the community, ensuring their poison would reach every tap, every drinking fountain, every home in Harmony Creek in a matter of hours. Harding now has Arthur Finch in an interrogation room. The room is gray and bare, the antithesis of Finch's meticulously ordered home. But Finch remains an island of calm. He sits with his hands folded on the metal table, his expression placid. He has lawyered up, and his attorney, a high-priced shark from out of state, has advised him to say nothing. So he doesn't. Harding and Morales present him with the evidence: the custom-made compartment, the red oak shavings from his workshop, the bespoke poison that only a gifted chemist could create. Finch just stares back, his silence a suffocating blanket. Frustrated, Harding pivots. She asks about the letter found on his computer. Await the signal. He will be glorified. Who is he? Is it a religious statement? A code for a person? Finch's composure cracks, just for a second. A muscle in his jaw twitches. It's the first genuine emotion she has seen from him, but he says nothing. The mention of this unknown figure is the key, the one thing that gets under his skin. This interrogation brings a fascinating legal event into play: the Christian burial speech. It's a famous tactic that arose from a 1977 Supreme Court case, Brewer v. Williams. In that case, police were transporting a murder suspect who had already invoked his right to an attorney. The detectives didn't question him directly. Instead, they spoke to each other about how the victim, a little girl, deserved a Christian burial, hoping to play on the suspect's religious beliefs and guilt him into revealing the body's location. It worked. The Supreme Court initially threw out the confession, ruling it was a form of interrogation that violated the suspect's rights. But the conviction was later upheld on other grounds. The case created a legal minefield around what constitutes an interrogation. Harding can't question Finch directly, but she can talk at him. She starts musing aloud to Morales about the kind of person who would manipulate a lonely, disgraced man. She talks about how someone brilliant like Finch was exploited, his talent used for a monstrous purpose by a coward hiding in the shadows. Finch's facade doesn't crumble, but the tiny twitch in his jaw returns. The second odd detail comes from the schematic itself. In the corner of the map, there's a small, hand-drawn symbol. It looks like a stylized scale, the kind representing justice, but one side of the scale is weighted down by a feather. It's a peculiar, almost poetic bit of iconography. It means nothing to the detectives, a random doodle on a map of death. But it's a signature, and Harding photographs it and sends it out to every law enforcement agency in the state. Maybe someone has seen it before. With Finch silent and the festival looming, the investigation turns into a frantic citywide search. Teams are dispatched to map and seal every sewer entrance shown on the schematic.
The public works director is brought into the loop, and he quietly begins formulating a plan to shut down and bypass the main aqueduct, a move that would be logistically crippling but necessary. The narrative has shifted from "who did this" to "how do we stop what's already in motion?" The final, chilling irony of this section lands when Harding, reviewing Finch's sterile financial records, finds a single recurring anomaly. Once a month, Finch makes a modest cash withdrawal. The next day, a corresponding donation is made to the St. Jude's Cathedral Restoration Fund. He wasn't just hiding his poison in the church, he was funding the institution he planned to use as a launchpad for his attack. His meticulous ledgers show he had contributed over $5,000 to the upkeep of the very building he intended to desecrate. It's a level of compartmentalization that is truly pathological. He is both benefactor and destroyer, tending the garden he plans to burn to the ground. He is not just a chemist, he is a keeper of a terrible, secret covenant. And the identity of the person he made that covenant with is still out there, waiting to give the signal. The revelation that Julian Croft is the arbiter changes the game entirely. Harding now knows the who, but the how of stopping him seems impossible. Croft is a phantom, insulated by layers of legal privilege and plausible deniability. The 20-year-old cold case provides context, but no hard evidence linking him to Arthur Finch. Attorney-client privilege is one of the oldest and most sacred tenets of the U.S. legal system, a cornerstone known as the testimonial privilege. It means that, with very few exceptions, a lawyer cannot be compelled to testify against their client, nor can they reveal any communications from that client. Croft is using this sacred trust as his ultimate shield. Harding is in a bind. She can't arrest Croft based on a retired cop's hunch and a circumstantial connection to a church fund. She needs to either break Finch's loyalty or find a direct, undeniable link between Croft and the poisoning plot. The clock is ticking down. Less than 24 hours to go. The breakthrough comes from the most overlooked piece of evidence, the Pugue itself. After the EOD team cleared it, it was transported to a forensic warehouse. Harding decides to revisit it, driven by a nagging feeling that they missed something. The compartment Finch built was flawless, a testament to his meticulous nature. She runs her hand along the inside of the hollowed-out space, feeling the smooth, sanded wood. And then, her fingers brush against it. A tiny imperfection. A single, small splinter of wood wedged deep in a corner, its grain and color slightly different from the surrounding red oak. This is the first, almost microscopic twist. It's an anomaly in a space defined by perfection.
She sends the splinter to the lab for analysis. The report comes back within hours. The wood is balsa wood, a type commonly used in model airplanes and architectural models? Harding's mind flashes back to the initial search of Finch's house. His workshop was for heavy-duty woodworking. There were no delicate modeling tools, no scraps of balsa. Finch didn't work with this type of wood, but someone who builds architectural models would. This tiny splinter gives Harding the leverage she needs. It's not enough to arrest Croft, but it's enough to challenge the narrative. She gets authorization to search Julian Croft's high-end law office. It's a long shot, but it's the only one she has. As the team searches Croft's sleek, modern office, Harding zeroes in on his bookshelf. It's filled with leather-bound law books and accolades, but behind a row of tax law volumes, she finds a locked wooden box. The warrant covers it. Inside, is not a weapon or a chemical formula. It's a collection of exquisitely detailed architectural models. A model of a courthouse, a model of a chemical plant he once sued, and in the center, a stunningly intricate model of St. Jude's Cathedral. This is the odd, incriminating detail that cracks the case wide open. Why would a lawyer have a passion for building models of places tied to his legal battles? Harding looks closer at the cathedral model. The roof lifts off to reveal the interior, and there, in the back, is a tiny, perfectly rendered pew. Using a pair of tweezers from a forensic kit, Harding gently probes the model pew. A section of the seat comes loose. It's a hidden compartment. The balsa wood splinter from the real pew was a remnant, a tiny piece of the model that must have fallen off and gotten stuck to the poison pouch or the schematic when Croft was handling them, transferring from his model to Finch's Dropbox. This is where the law provides a crucial exception to Croft's shield. The crime-fraud exception is a legal doctrine stating that attorney-client privilege does not apply if the client is seeking legal advice in the furtherance of a crime or fraud. Croft wasn't giving Finch legal advice, he was co-conspiring with him. The model, a physical link between Croft and the crime scene, is the key that unlocks that exception. Armed with this, Harding goes back to Arthur Finch one last time. She doesn't bring the model, she doesn't bring the evidence. She brings a single high-resolution photo of Julian Croft's smiling face from his law firm's website. She slides it across the table. "He called you an instrument," she says softly, "a tool to be used and discarded. He has a model of the church in his office, Arthur. A little toy. That's all this was to him. A game." She lets the silence hang in the air. Then she delivers the final blow. "We know about the lab accident. We know they erased you. You spent your life as a ghost because of one mistake. Julian Croft didn't see a brilliant man who was wronged. He saw a lonely man he could use. The letter said, 'He will be glorified.' He wasn't talking about God, Arthur. He was talking about himself." And with that, Arthur Finch, the man of perfect, impenetrable calm, finally breaks. A single tear rolls down his cheek. He looks up at Harding, his eyes filled with a lifetime of quiet shame and manipulated rage. "He told me," Finch whispers, his voice raspy from disuse, "that we were bringing a righteous judgment, that we were balancing the scales." He begins to talk. A full confession floods out of him, detailing how Croft recruited him, flattered his genius, and twisted his personal tragedy into a crusade. He explains that the poison was to be introduced into the aqueduct by a third man, another one of Croft's disenfranchised clients, who was waiting for the final signal. The confession triggers a cascade of events. Croft is arrested in his office, his smug composure shattering when he's confronted with the model of the church. The third accomplice is apprehended in a motel room near the water treatment facility just hours before the festival is set to begin. The final bitter irony is that Julian Croft, the man who so masterfully wielded the law to conceal his crimes, is ultimately brought down by his own hubris, the obsessive artistic vanity that compelled him to build a miniature version of his own sinister plan. The feather on his scale was his own ego, and it was more than enough to send his perfect crime crashing to the ground. Rex, the canine who started it all, gets a steak dinner and a new chew toy. His nose didn't just find a hidden compartment, it unraveled a conspiracy that would have remained buried in silence, secrets, and sacred ground. The city of Harmony Creek breathes a collective sigh of relief it doesn't even know it's holding. The Founders Day festival goes on as planned, under a blanket of quiet, heightened security. The story is never fully released to the public, relegated to a few tight-lipped press releases about a foiled public safety threat. The residents enjoy the parade and the fireworks, their lives untouched by the shadow that so nearly fell upon them. It's a strange and sobering thought that civilization often hangs by such thin threads. The keen nose of a dog, a misplaced splinter of wood, the last-minute confession of a broken man. The legal battles that follow are complex, but the outcome is never truly in doubt. Arthur Finch, in exchange for his testimony, receives a reduced sentence. His quiet life in a sterile house exchanged for a quiet life in a sterile cell. Julian Croft, the brilliant arbiter, faces a litany of charges that will ensure he spends the rest of his life contemplating justice from behind bars, his intricate models collecting dust in an evidence locker. The scales, it seems, have a way of balancing themselves after all. Thank you for joining me on this journey tonight. These stories serve as a reminder that the most profound dramas often unfold not in the noise, but in the silence. If you found yourself captivated by the twists and turns of this case, a like and a comment go a long way in helping me continue to bring these narratives to light. Sharing the video with someone who appreciates a slow burn mystery is perhaps the greatest compliment of all. There are countless other files waiting to be opened, countless other secrets buried just beneath the surface. I look forward to exploring them with you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.